Our pleasure showing us to welcome you to the great city of Baltimore and the International Orthodox Christian Charities to greet you as the third patriarch to come to the United States of America in the recent months. Welcome, bless us with your presence. Lie and rest with us.
The main plan, the main idea of IOSS should be that people should start to work themselves and to think. They are sewing blankets. They brought us very, very good results. Those who had wool, they sold their wool. Those who were in need, they received those blankets. Those who made those blankets, they have received their salaries. For instance, I know that in some of the countries, they provide some of the countries with milk-giving goats. By this they help. The special breed of goats in Europe, which are bred in Switzerland, which is called Zan goats, which is a river in Switzerland, and they breed it several centuries ago. And each goat gives about 5 or 7 liters of milk each day. And for instance, in Egypt, there was such kind of support, and the families have bred those goats. When food is sent to these of course they have to eat, and they need another injection, another support. There's a wonderful saying in China: you may give fish to a hungry person, but you should teach them how to catch fish. Then that person will be insured during the whole of his life. And I think that IOCC have to teach how to catch fish to the people all over the world. And this is something you do. I know we have a wonderful collaboration with Lazarus. And I'm very grateful. On the behalf of those people who participate in implementation of the program from various parts of Georgia. And on behalf of those people, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for the huge support you provide to us. May God bless IOCC. This is a small gift to your wife.
Soon. He's gonna put pressure on me. She's coming here soon.
He said he's putting pressure on him to get married.
These are some brochures about Georgian Orthodox Church in English.
Oh, very good.
A brief.
Well, thanks for coming.
At the patriarchal throne that was graced on October 23rd of last year by Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew. The flag of the patriarch is on your right side, which shall forever mark the great visit of our beloved and deeply respected Ecumenical Patriarch. And now you too will be remembered with deep respect and love, for giving us your blessing as you arise to the patriarchal throne. His Holiness and Beatitude Ilia II, Catholicos Patriarch of all Georgia, Charities. Now he will be with us, and following this brief welcome, we will invite everyone here to proceed to our Annunciation Orthodox Center for a reception in his honor.
Truly, how important our visit to the United States is of utmost importance. We've come here from the free and independent country of Georgia, and the processes which have taken place in the former Soviet Union, in Europe, and in the entire world. Which have been implemented through the direct involvement of our President, Mr. Ramazan. And we are proud of it. And I would like to say that we maintain particularly fraternal relationships with the ecumenical patriarchate of Constantinople. His own Holiness Bartholomew the First makes us a lot. Not only for the unity of Orthodoxy, but for unity of the Holy Christendom. And the Georgian Patriarchate actively supports all the initiatives undertaken by him. Once again, I do cordially greet you on the behalf of the Georgian Patriarchate, on behalf of all the persons accompanying you, and we shall offer up praise so that all
Says lucky Baltimore.
He loves when it's hard. What's that boat over there?
Говорим дворец Вашингтон DC. San Jose.
Ulica Folk. Только имя. Улица.
Это не город.
Да, не город. Сан-Хозе это город.
Это город.
Сия значит Калифорния. Сокращение.
Это улица.
Да.
Сперва улица, потом город.
Да.
Потом сперва город.
Ну да, а вам...
Сеги ცხოვრობს იგორი ავილაძე, რომელიც არის საქართველოდან ჩამოსული და მისი დედა არის მონაზონის საპატრიარქოში. მონაზონის ქვია სახელად ეფემია და მან გამოგატანა ეს წერილი და ყოველ აქ აპოსტოლოში ჩავიდა.
Translation of the letter. Yes.
Soruş, Washington DC, bibliotekarz.
You brought back for me. I have
And a great interest in the Georgia language.
George Hewitt is
Parents and
Pozostałe Washington jest kongresyst bibliotekarz.
all the illustrations.
the great.
Since the fall of the Iron Curtain, this is Oxford University Press, History of Georgia Literature, from the very early Georgia was one of the first nations to be Christianized, actually. And history of post-Soviet, second edition history of a number of grammars of Georgia, which of course has its own alphabet. Well, it's kind of isolated. It's its own. It's,
I'm not about to say it. No, but I'm surprised they published it.
It's called Parvalia. Is the family.
We know a lot. We know that you have a great influence. It's a great honor for us to meet with you. And we're very grateful that you have been able to find time out of your busy schedule. I think that our present visit to the United States is very important. That's my fourth visit to the United States. But the present visit differs from the previous one because the previous three visits took place during the period of the Soviet Union. And now they are coming from free Georgia. And we do greetings on behalf of Georgia and its population. I would like to say that in fact, despite the fact that Georgia is free, and it's facing a lot of problems. In the post-economic period, all the countries which were included in the Soviet Union are facing similar problems, and of course, in the kind of Asian region. And you know, there are two big problems in Abkhazia. Another problem in the Caucasus is the Nagorno-Karabakh problem. And I think that all these problems will be sorted out peacefully through the involvement of international forces, and first of all, of the United States, and with the support of the United States. We, in the occasion, we think that the Caucasus has no less importance to the United States than the Middle East. Now you know that there are a lot of discussions with regard to this great Silk Route, which historically existed between the West and the East. That's a wonderful possibility through the use of the ports that Georgia has. This Porti and Batumi ports. A few days ago, when I came to the United States, I visited Porti. I saw the port, and which is very, very promising. A lot can be done. As a matter of fact, this is in action, in operation. On the Middle Asia, huge quantities of cotton is exported to Europe, and oil and gas in the future will be exported. This is very necessary for the entire region, not only to Georgia, but to its neighboring countries, Azerbaijan, Armenia, to the Middle Asian countries. As far as I know, even Japan is interested in this route. We are inspired now, and we do hope that Caucasus will become developed. The region, the democratic region composed with these democratic states, and we think that and we do hope that the support from the United States will be active. We live with such hopes.
Well, of course, President Shevardnadze has been here a number of times and commands a great respect here in Washington. And we have tried to be helpful in various ways. I was in your country many years ago. In the early 1980s, I was part of a Senate delegation. And in fact, I remember we had discussions in Tbilisi, but we had to have a three-way translation. From Georgian, which the Georgians would only speak, into Russian, and then into English. So it's a major step forward today that we only have a tell me a bit about how the church is doing.
As you know, our Georgian church is one of the ancient churches. We We maintain very close relationship with the ecumenical patriarch, as well as the patriarchs of Alexandria, Antiochian, and other churches. Now, for example, when there were elections of new Archbishop of Greek, Athens, our representatives, our delegation went to participate in the enthronement of the Archbishop. You are very well aware of the fact how difficult that cabinet period was.
I know the new Archbishop of Greece well because I visited him. He was the Bishop of Volos. And I had visited him there when he was bishop. Of course, now he's become the Archbishop of Volos.
He's a great scientist. He's published books. He deserves high respect. And I think that do a lot for the Greek church. I wish all of them have very active collaboration. Our students now study in Greece. During the period of the covenant, now we are in the process of restoration of the damaged and ruined cathedrals and monasteries. We have opened theological academies, 2 of them, and 4 theological seminaries. We also opened church schools. We do also charitable and missionary work. There is an IOCC in Baltimore. IOCC Catholic is Lutheran. It is very interesting. They have been concentrated in Baltimore. They do a lot in the entire very constantly.
We have worked very hard to attract them to Baltimore.
And
then they find Baltimore a good location because it's close to Washington. But it's not as expensive for the people to live in Baltimore as it is in Washington. I live in Baltimore myself.
And IOCC does a lot in Georgia. Today we had a meeting in IOCC office. We have talked about it. For one period, there was urgency to support the population with food products. But now, it is necessary to help people to set up small enterprises and small farms, so that people should be employed, so that they should work themselves. We refer to a Chinese proverb today that it is possible to give food to fish to a hungry person, but it is better to teach him how to catch a fish. Teach them how to catch fish.
They have to. You've got one of your IOCC workers back, didn't you?
Yes, in Chechnya, one was released on March 24th, and the other one is still in captivity.
Do you know anything about the other one?
We know he's in a hole in the ground covered by a slab, cement slab, and with water leaking through the walls, if he's still in the same place. And some contacts are being made, but no release in the offing as yet.
It's very regrettable, pity to hear the story about the North Caucasian conflict and the kidnapped and related to the international organizations.
Tell me a bit, I've been reading, I understand you have and maybe we should discuss it a bit, a sensitive issue with various religions that are coming in from the West and seeking to proselytize.
Ez hadassal egy visszaadni és hogy ilyen hasonlóan proselytizmus.
That has the potential to be a difficult issue in the Congress. I'm sure Father Kishkovsky has explained that to you. There are elements here. It's interesting. You had your religion suppressed and held down or oppressed for so many years. And now as you try to reestablish yourself, you have these complications that come from a different direction. I think I have some understanding of what you face. But I would say, generally speaking, in the Congress, there's really there's not an understanding of the situation. In fact, they're now moving legislation in the Congress that would apply sanctions to countries that didn't have sort of an open religious environment. So you need to think this through very carefully. I know the ambassador is familiar with this issue.
That's rather difficult issues. Invasion of various sectarians, utterly alien and utterly new. Such traditional churches as Georgian Church, as Armenian Church. It is very difficult when there are new sectarians coming into the country. They taking the occasion of the population or in material needs, delivering some support, some help, and proselytizing. In general, I always mention first centuries of Christianity, the apostles had such a rule. When one apostle entered a certain area or state together with his disciples, another apostle was not authorized to enter there, so that there should not be any contradiction between them. And now that quite a few sectarians come into the country telling the person that your faith is not correct and you have to adopt our faith.
Well, they tell us the same thing. I mean, I encounter some of these evangelicals, and they say to me, "Are you born again?" And of course, then I have to say, well, you know, the Bible was written in the language of my people to begin with. And we go back 2,000 years, but they, you know, so I understand what you're encountering. But you need to appreciate that the influence of this element is strong in the Congress. And so you have to be very, I'm just trying to give some helpful counsel. You have to be very careful, very sensitive. So you can't be accused of trying to put down religious freedom.
That's your point. Right. Because there are cases when incorrect information are sent to UN or other international organizations. As if their religious freedom is limited or hindered. Europe, I think, is facing the same problem. I think that the United States should not enter should not come into the new independent countries with sectarianism, but with its high culture, science, its policy, its economy, science and mission.
Yeah, unfortunately, often the first thing that comes in is like the mass culture, the television and the movies. So instead of the better side of America coming, the more moral side of America, you get sort of these bad influences.
We think that all these problems will be sorted out and the relationship will be refined gradually.
Tell me how much danger do you think the president is? I read of the assassination attempt in February with great concern. And of course, at a previous time, he'd actually experienced severe harm. Do you think those elements are being brought under control, or does it remain a difficult situation?
I would like to convey his best greetings to you before coming. I had a telephone conversation with His Excellency. We have very, very friendly relations. We talk to each other very often. But I think that danger exists. But an entire population support. But there are certain forces out of Georgia which never forgive him for events whatever have taken place in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. This is something in which we need your support in order to protect. These are very important, not only to Georgia, but to the entire.
Could I ask Your Holiness for your view on whether you see a way that we can resolve the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan? I know it's next, it's not your jurisdiction, but it's next door, and perhaps you have some idea.
Say that there are two conflicts which exist in the Caucasus. This is a conflict in Abkhazia and those conflicts are artificially created conflicts by the external forces. Those conflicts should not be kept on. That's very dangerous. I think that international organizations, as well as the United States, have to be more actively involved in the regulation process. That should not be. It should not be the problem to be sorted out by one particular country. Let's say Russia. International forces and first of all the United States have to be involved in the process of addressing these problems. And that's to be done very quickly, urgently.
Does the church, what is the status of the church in Abkhazia?
First of all, the diocese of Abkhazia belongs to the Georgian Orthodox Church. It is one of its dioceses, and here is Archbishop Daniel of the Archbishop of Abkhazia Diocese.
So the dispute that exists at the political and civil sector does not exist in the religious sector, is that correct?
But it exists. For instance, the Archbishop Daniel cannot stay there because it is dangerous. Two of the priests who were there were assassinated. That's right. I never gave him any blessings to go there because it is dangerous. And his life will be put in danger.
Well, now let me. I guess I should know this, but one of the purposes of these meetings is to learn, obviously. Is there a breakaway church in Abkhazia or no church? If the Archbishop can't function there, who or what functions in Abkhazia as a religious institution?
They're not priests there. Several priests.
Under his holiness' jurisdiction or breakaway?
Under jurisdiction. For instance, they go to Russia. Sochi is a nearby city. And from there, they communicate with us through letters or telephone. Because from Abkhazia they can't communicate. Or let's say they send some lay people still via the Russian territory problems of Abkhazia are very close to me because for a period, very painful to me. For a period of 11 years, I was Metropolitan of Abkhazia Diocese. And from there, I was elected as a patriot of all Georgia.
There are many, many Georgian refugees who have fled from Abkhazia to other parts of Georgia.
300,000.
IOCC has been, to some degree, working with some of those refugees in assistance to them.
But are there active religious institutions in Abkhazia?
In general, Abkhazia is so closed, so secluded. That political group, which is led, headed by Argentina, they have closed everything.
They closed.
They closed everything. They need security. They try to. There were cases when he wrote to the patriot of Russia that we want to join our church with the Russian church. Of course, patriot of Moscow in Russia is not authorized. I mean, the canonical man. Not having canonical in accordance with the church legislation.
So the patriarch, the ecumenical patriarch wouldn't permit that.
That's
Actually, you recognize an independent church in Estonia, wasn't it?
That problem in Estonia still remains refused. It has not been finally sorted out.
The Moscow church stopped mentioning the ecumenical patriarch in their prayers, I think.
For a few months.
Not for a few months.
Now they do.
Now they do.
There was a case. The patriarch of Russia arrived in Georgia on a friendly visit. Very, very good. Then after that we had to consolidate. And there was a problem. We remember he's always in our prayers, but he did not. I asked him. From now on, please, I do ask you to remember His All Holiness in your prayers. He said, I can't, because it's a decision which was made by the Holy Synod of the Russian Orthodox Church. That's not a decision made personally by me. After that, we decided.
When the Synod made the decision, what was his position?
Of course, he supported, stood for it. Then we decided that during the liturgy, I remember His All Holiness in my prayers, but he did not.
Peter, what's their program here? Do you know your schedule?
Upload something schedule.
We have a few minutes.
Huh? I don't want to cause you to be late for your next conversion.
Okay, here. 5 minutes.
Is there anything else we haven't touched on?
I think we have touched upon all the relevant issues. You have,
Not well, but I know it's When we made our trip to the Caucasus, I have to tell the group this story. Our group of senators, we went to, well then Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, Moscow, Tashkent, Samarkand, and Tbilisi. And when we arrived in Tbilisi, the head of our delegation was Senator Pell of Rhode Island. And he wanted to meet these Georgians who were 125 years old. So he kept insisting that he wanted to meet these people. So one day, we were there 4 days. One day they took us out into the countryside and we visited the home of the great Georgian poet of the 19th century. They have a lovely home outside of Tbilisi. You travel to it. And we visited his home. And then there was a picnic. And they said that at the picnic they would bring some of these elderly people. So they brought some in, but the oldest one was only 105 years old. My colleague was very disappointed because he said his aunt had lived to be 105. So to make up for it, the organizers of the trip said, because he got very upset, they said, well, tomorrow, just before you leave, we will bring a doctor. You have an institute of gerontology. So they brought the head doctor in to talk to us. There were 10 senators on this trip. It was a large delegation. That was the only meeting, the meeting with a doctor, at which all 10 senators, and they were all anxious, of course, to find this secret to a long life. So I'm sure if you could explain that to us, it would make a great impression in our
We are very grateful. Thank you for receiving us. We would like you to have some souvenirs from here. This is a chandelier.
This I've had before. This is
Yeah, they're out in the hallway. Always there with things out.
I hope that you will support IOCC.
Oh, I'm a very strong supporter.
They're expecting IOCC to help with farm work and with the World Bank project.
I'm sorry, buddy.
The IOCC has been a very important initiative because it brings all of our Orthodox churches here in the United States together in support. All of the Orthodox, whether it's the OCA or the Greek Archdiocese or whoever, they all have come together in supporting the IOCC. And we have gotten the AID to recognize them.
The Agency for International Development. Federal.
Our government. To recognize the IOCC as a legitimate organization for providing assistance. Just as they recognize Catholic relief
SNES, katoliku kultakmarin
or Lutheran World Service.
Lutheran I si mat mafia una, io ci sia sempre così.
What? It's on?
Thank you.
Oh, too late. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hope the point.
That's a fellow parliamentarian.
Yes, I know. He's the deputy head of the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Right.
Yes. I hope my point on the.
I think it was important.
I hope it gets across. It's important to be understood. I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but there's not much understanding here. This legislation is going to be very difficult.
Sensitive. Very sensitive.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the people. My, huh? Hell of a
Well, they're going to do
Thank you very much.
That seemed to be duplicitous.
Father Kiskowski is, you know, he's Christos. Thank you very much. Christos was best.
Yeah, nice.
Father, take care.
Yeah. Alithos on it.
Take care. Do my best to your father.
I went to the American.
in Pennsylvania area.
Does it got this name, this unit?
FBI.
FBI, because many flags.
Capitol, White House, Belly Dome, Capitol. Pennsylvania.
His Holiness. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you. How are you? Yes, I've thought of you often. I had a wonderful visit. Glad you had a safe trip and have a nice day.
Gracias. Გადაიღე. აი ისა და ისა.
ისა და
და გადაშალე. აი მქალე.
აბა ის წარმოთქვით, ვინ არის იგა? ეს ბაბუა, ხო?
წერია მე გაჩუქებ. მაგთი.
ხო, არა, იმაში რო ჩაიწეროს თამაში. იმიტომ
ისიც რა შეავეს ცოტა გამერთულდება ახლა. კარგად არის. დაწერილი ყველაფერი ფუნდამენტალურად, რა თქმა უნდა, ჩემი მითითებით. ვინ? ვისთვის
გადაიწერე და ჩემთვის და მე უწმინდესაც შეიძლება გადაუწერო და მივაწოდო, იმიტომ რომ უწმინდესაც მამავაჟა.
მამავაჟა. იღებ.
დიახ.
მამავაჟა. დიდი ხნის გასვლა ჩვენ არა ვართ, რა თქმა უნდა. მაგრამ ამ წიგნის მიხედვით მე თქვენ მიხდებით, რომ კაი ხნის თბილისი საქართველოს სამშობლოდ წარსული საბჭოთა კავშირი ბევრი რამ დაკავშირებს.
ნამდვილად და უფრო
ნაცნობობა ჩვენი კაი ხნის.
I requested permission from His Holiness to speak in English. Good evening. It's overwhelmingly emotional evening. And I could say that I'm really nervous because for the first time I'm speaking in my life in the presence of Georgia Ilia II.
Embassy of Georgia. I'd like to thank you very much for coming to our reception. President Shevardnadze, whom I called in the morning, asked me to convey his best regards to everybody here, and especially he asked me to convey his warm regards to Georgian community, to members of Georgian community, because I think that it's their reception too. I'm in Washington already almost 4 years, so it's my fourth reception, but this one today is extraordinary event because of two reasons. The first reason is the following, that we are honored, and it is a great privilege for us to have here with us the Catholicos Patriarch of Georgia, His Holiness Ilia II, the spiritual father of Georgia. I would also want to recognize the presence of His Beatitude, Theodosius, Archbishop of Washington, Head of Orthodox Church of America. And I'd like to say that His Holiness is invited. He is in the United States on an invitation of His Beatitude, and it's really extraordinary example of cooperation between Russia and Georgia, between Russian and Georgian churches. His Holiness is visiting the United States of America, not for the first time, it's his fourth visit, but the Catholicos Patriarch of Georgia, Ilia II, it's his first visit from the independent Georgia. And Your Holiness, we're really honored, and it's a great privilege for us that you're here with us today. Another historical fact which I'd like to recognize, and which makes today's reception extraordinary, is that 80 years ago, in 1918, the first independent Republic of Georgia was declared, though tragically abolished in a couple of years by the hordes of Red Army. This year, in a couple of weeks, we'll be celebrating this important anniversary. Somebody I remember mentioned that the history is just a recital of mistakes, and it's a really very good expression which we should, remember always, because not everybody in Georgia fully learned the very tragic, dramatic lessons of our history. I'm not going to talk much. I would like to ask His Holiness later to make some remarks, but before I will do it, I just want to mention a couple of things. Looking back into our ancient history, full of dramatic and tragic events, I would like to only mention that the cementing idea that preserved Georgia during this tragic, as I mentioned, and dramatic events was Christianity. Georgian church, which was not only religious for us, but it was a way of life, because it's Georgian churches, Georgian education, Georgian culture, Georgian science. And what preserved Georgia, it was, faith, commitment. Georgia is going through, I should say, very dramatic also, but at the same time, very painful transitional period. We need, church, we need, faith, and this commitment to go through these democratic, very painful market economy reforms is possible because we feel, next to us, Georgian church, which is one of the cementing ideas of, Georgian nation. We in Georgia now are trying to reach several goals, and I would mention a couple of them. The first one, that we're creating, absolutely new Georgia, creating new democratic institutions. And we like these democratic institutions to become a functioning one. The democracy in Georgia should become also a way of life. We're going through very painful, as I mentioned, but very necessary economic reforms, and I'd like to recognize in this room, the presence of several American. I'd like to ask His Holiness to say some words, to the audience. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, Mrs. Tamar Jabarite, ladies and gentlemen, we are glad. And first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to you for sharing our joy with us on the day of freedom and in celebration of the freedom and independence of Georgia. This is my fourth visit to the United States. But the present one differs from the previous ones because the three visits were from the former Soviet Union. And today I'm coming from free and independent Georgia. This is the first case for me when I'm celebrating Independence Day in the United States of America. One more fact is of utmost importance. That this time Catholic Patriarch of all Armenians, His Holiness Martin I, is in the United States, as well as the Patriarch of all Georgia. This is one more example. Tells us once again how important Caucasian region is. And how much can be done by the United States for peace and stability in the Caucasus. With great respect and love, I greet the ambassadors from Azerbaijan, Armenia, and other countries who have come here and to celebrate the independence of Georgia together with us. I would like to tell you that the Georgian Church is an ancient Christian church which was founded in the 1st century by the holy apostles, and in the 4th century Christianity became a state religion in Georgia. In the 5th century, Georgia Church became autocephalous, that means independence. And the culture which was created by the Georgian people were built on Christian faith. As I have told you, this is a national holiday. Our church is a national church. As you know, Georgia is located in the Caucasus, which always united the West and the East, which united Asia and Europe. And today, Georgia is acquiring back its huge importance. That great silk route has been restored, which all existed between the West and the East. That will be very important to the entire Caucasian region, to the Middle Asia, to the East, and to the Europe. Once again, I express my deepest gratitude to you for coming here. I congratulate the Georgian people on this glorious holiday. May God bless you. May God bless the United States of America and Georgia.
Tato knows all the secrets in Washington, and I know you've been here for 4 years. This is my third time at a Georgia National Day, and I'd like to simply observe that Washington is full of friends of Georgia. There's more each year, and it's good to see all of you here. To Ambassador Japaridze and Mrs. Japaridze, Tato and Tamara, to His Holiness Ilia II, Catholicos Patriarch of all Georgia, to the United States. I would like to welcome His Holiness Ilia II, whose visit we are also honoring, and note that we are fortunate that he can join us for the celebration of Georgian independence, which is so precious to all of us. I feel honored to be here this evening to acknowledge and commend the progress that Georgia has made since independence under the creative leadership of its president, Edward Shevardnadze. Georgia's commitment to democratic institution building and economic reform has laid the foundation.
Father Alexander. Prince Alexander.
ladies and gentlemen, Board Secretary, please. Professor Norton, I'd like to say a few words about Pandalaka's book. A couple of seconds, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's many years since I visited.
რა ეწოდება ამ ხიდს?
დელავერის მდინარეა, მდინარე დელავერი. ხიდის დელავერის ხიდი. ეხლა შევდივართ ნიუ-ჯერზიში. არის დელავერი.
რა ქალაქია? ნიუ?
შტატია დელავერი.
დელავერი შტატი. ნიუ-ჯერსი.
ნიუ-ჯერსი კენტრალურ
არის რა?
ჯორჯ ვაშინგტონი.
შეავწერა მისი უცხნესობა, უძოდება.
Very active, very interested legislators of the next generation who are turning Georgia into a liberal, democratic state. And I think that in itself is something to be commemorated and to be thankful for as we celebrate Georgian independence. Thank you.
The Ambassador of Georgia to the United States.
I'd also like to say a couple of words at this exceptional, overwhelming, emotional day, and it's my honor to be here with everybody. Congratulations with this anniversary. Especially, I'd like to convey my congratulations to little Georgi, who is sitting in the first row, because it's his day. It's the generation we just are working for, and I hope he should carry on this torch, taken since 1980. So I'd like to say a couple of words, but before I do this, I'd like to recognize a couple of people here. And first of all, I'd like to recognize His Holiness, the Catholicos of Georgia, Ilia II, His Beatitude, Metropolitan Theodosius. And I'd like to also recognize several people I see here in the audience, and I'm seeing Robin Cleveland, my dear and close friend, special advisor to Senator McConnell, a person who is champion of Georgian issues, but it's Robin Cleveland who is helping my country. I'd like to recognize also Nelson Letsky from NDI, who just talked with there. Georgia has come a long way since the establishment of the first Democratic Republic in 1918 and the regaining of its independence in 1991. And during these weary years, the Georgians have witnessed it all: the joys of victory, the bitterness of loss and solitude, naivete of the nation's expectations and harshness, and being a pioneer in the struggle between 1790-21 and the first years following the collapse of the Soviet Union. And today, when we are speaking about I'm speaking about modern Georgia, I'd like to use expression used by a person who will be speaking, who will be making keynotes remarks here in the evening, Ambassador Courtney, who's done a lot for Georgia. And Ambassador Courtney just made remarks a couple of months ago saying that Georgia, speaking about my country and reforms and democratic building there, that Georgia is not a risk anymore. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, and it does not mean that we do not have problems. We have still, very painful problem in Abkhazia, problem in Ossetia. There are certain problems on the way of reforms, but the word I'd like to use, describing my country is, commitment. We're committed to go through this very painful, very just turbulent way, which is called democracy, market economy. And what is the main third goal for us is to change the psychology of nation, because we're talking about the independence of Georgia. Georgia is a member of the United Nations, of different international organizations, but the psychology is still here, and in this respect, the presence of His Holiness and the role and function of Georgian Church is really measurable and very important. Georgian Church, which always used to be, as far as we remember Georgian history, a cementing, used to have a cementing function for Georgian society, and the function and the role of Georgian Church for modern Georgia is really very important. But when we speak about success in our country, a lot of people, our friends as well as foreigners coming, they are asking one, very crucial for them, question: will this continue? What are the sources of stability that can guarantee the continuation of reforms? And as far as I'm very short of time, I just list down, just these guarantees. Though Ambassador Letsky already mentioned this. First of all, the Constitution, the very important document, adopted by consensus of Georgian parliamentarians. The president, the institution of presidents, the parliament, very young, very aggressive, dynamic, institution. And I'd like to recognize also one of the members of Georgian parliament, Mr. Divi Shugarov, who is now at the audience and is the leading member of this, very interesting, legislative body. When we speak about the guarantees of Georgia's success, I'd like to mention mentality. The naive romanticism of the first years of independence gave its way to radical, pragmatic attitudes. Every Georgian mentality today is essentially immune to radical slogans. This transformation has occurred due to painful experience, but we are now becoming a pragmatic nation. We're speaking about success in my country. We should speak that we have, middle-class psychology. Though it's a long way before we create in Georgia middle class, but the psychology is just, down there. Speaking about guarantees, I'd like to mention, social capital. And at the end, the vision of a better life, and Georgians always used to be famous because of that. I mentioned some problems. We are still having some problems, and we are going through, this demythologization of our mentality. And again, within this also very painful process, the role and function of Georgian Church is, really very, very important. And concluding my remarks, I'd like to say that it's really great honor for me, for my wife, who is, sitting in the rear of this audience, from my embassy, to be here with you and congratulate you with this, very exciting anniversary. And yesterday we had reception in Washington, D.C., and I concluded my remarks down there saying that I hope that we'll meet, not me personally, but we'll meet, in 80 years, maybe here in the same audience, maybe Ambassador Georgi will be, making the same remarks, but I hope that Georgia in 80 years will be, just, independent, sovereign country with, real function, doing, business in the region, and that's why we are working in Georgia, contributing modestly to this, very esteemed goal. And I'd like to conclude my remarks with this, but to recognize two persons, down here. Very close friend of Georgia, Mr. Tom Dyan, who was just, also helping us to navigate, and Madam President of Georgian Society, Lizzie Zaldestani-Napier, and who are doing, really great job for for their country. and thank you very much for inviting me to this exceptional day.
It works again. Yes. Maybe with the appearance of His Holiness and His Beatitude that there's a miracle to occur, or maybe it was the technology section up there. However we can attribute this miracle to, we've got sound again. And it's a pleasure to introduce our next speaker, who is a fellow of the history of the first independent Republic of Georgia in the 20th century, as a professor.
These men, and the majority of Georgian citizens who supported them, created a democratic state which, against tremendous economic and political odds, lasted almost 3 years. It was at the time a genuine beacon of hope among European social democrats, such as Emil van der Velde, Karl Kautsky, and Ramsay MacDonald, my own compatriot from the United Kingdom, all of whom visited the Republic and wrote about it as a viable democratic alternative to the more authoritarian and class-based models of social democracy. Despite the tremendous difficulties and hardship faced by the Georgian population, in a small state at the time that was politically and economically blockaded by aggressive imperial powers to the north and the south, when the Republic came
as well in Tbilisi when we begin stage 2 of the celebration of the Declaration of Independence. It's an honor to introduce the next speaker, His Beatitude Theodosius, Metropolitan of all America and Canada.
Holiness, Your Eminences, Your Excellencies, your brothers and sisters, it is an unexpected joy for me to be here to address you, and it's going to be very brief. My first experience of meeting in Georgia took place in 1978. I had just been elected as the primate of the Orthodox Church in America, and I was on my first visit to Tbilisi, to Georgia, and His Holiness had just been elected a year before as the primate, as the head of the Georgian Orthodox Church. And I just want to give one example of how I was so impressed by the spirit, even in those days under the Soviet regime. We had flown in from Moscow, and we had all of our ecclesiastical guard, and we went to His Holiness's residence, and we had tea, and we were going to go do some shopping. And so we excused ourselves and said, well, we're going to go to the hotel to change. And His Holiness says, you're going to go to the hotel and change? I said, well, yes, we'll put on our suits and shirt and tie and go shopping. He said, you are not in Moscow. You are in Tbilisi, in Gruzi, in Georgia. You will go shopping in your robes. He said, the people will respect you and they will honor you. And immediately I knew that I was in a different country. And I knew when the shepherd, the archbishop, the patriarch said, you'll do this, and the people, and you'd be surprised. In 78, people would meet a store and people would come, give a blessing. Bless me, bless me. And that impressed me, that Georgian spirit, even though it was a very difficult, but I could see through their shepherd. And he opened that little crack, that door, that I could see that freedom-loving people. And our being here is really another accident, but it's really not an accident because everything is in God's will. 2 years ago, His Holiness invited me to come to Georgia. I was unable to go that year, but I went last year to celebrate the feast day of His Holiness, the prophet Ilia, on August the 2nd. And when I was there, I was just so overcome. We had a meeting with President Shevardnadze and His Holiness, and I said, we must extend an invitation for His Holiness to come back, this time as the head of a free and sovereign, independent Georgia. His Holiness accepted, and how these things all come together. And here we are celebrating the 80th anniversary of the independence of Georgia. That was not in the back of our mind at the time. But God brought His Holiness here to help you celebrate this great feast day. We thank you, Your Holiness, for coming and giving your blessing to a younger sister church. The Church of Georgia is 1,600 years old, and we are only 204 years in this country. So we give a big bow to you, and we ask you to give us your blessing and your words. Thank you.
I will now ask for that blessing His Holiness himself, the Catholicos Patriarchus of all Georgia, Ilia II.
Your Beatitude, dear brother in Christ. Ladies and gentlemen, Saint David the prophet says the following in the Psalms. The miraculous are your deeds, our Lord. In fact, great is the Lord, and miraculous are His deeds. Who could imagine when we would celebrate freedom and independence of Georgia in the United States of America? Who would imagine that together with Georgians, American people would celebrate this great date? But great is our Lord, and miraculous are His deeds. That's the will of God. We have come here from free Georgia, independent Georgia. But we are fully aware of the fact that independence is not only a flag, is not only an emblem. This is more. And now we would like that Georgia to be truly independent and democratic. What is necessary for this? Unanimity, one spirit, one heart. Maybe our mentality is different from each other. This is normal. It's usual. Every human being have been created to be free in his will, in his mind. But our freedom, we should not give our motherland to this freedom. We have to remember that we are backed up by a multi-suffrage Georgia. And very often, we have to put aside our personal wishes and we have to stand for each other. Our life consists of the past, present day, and the future. The past of Georgia is heroic one. You know that this is an ancient Christian country. Where the Holy Apostle preached Christianity in the first century, where the robe of our Lord Jesus Christ was brought. This is the country called Iberia, which fell to the lot of O Holy Mother of God. This is the state where Christianity became state religion as a result of preachings by Saint Nino. This is the country when the church became autocephalous. It means independent in the 5th century. Entire our culture is based on Christianity. We protect our land, our faith, our language. And we, the church and the nation, have always been together. And maybe that's the reason that we have been saved. This unity has saved us. But is it necessary that we should be proud of our past only? We had a lot of devoted saints and statesmen in Georgia, and many others. We are proud of our past, but we have to think about our present, contemporary life, about our future, about our tomorrow. Whatever has to be done today, we have to do it today. Whatever we can do now, we have to do it now. Every human being is given his own cross. The cross of some of them is heavier, some of them is less heavy, but we all have to bear this cross. And I would like to take this wonderful occasion and apply to the Georgians who are living in the United States of America. Your roots are in Georgia. You have to receive your spiritual and physical food from there. Holy relics of your great ancestors are in Georgia. That's, you should not lose any linkages with your homeland. You may live here, you study, you work here, but the main care of you should be Georgia. I do greet you all on the behalf of our ancient church, our faithful nation. We have brought blessings of the Georgian land, of the Georgian saints. May God bless you. May God bless you, the United States of America and Georgia.
Ahead of you, and in order to do that, we're going to take a few minutes to rearrange the furniture here, so we won't ask, don't go way too far. And once again, I want to join with all of my panelists, all the community here at the Hermansud of Columbia, wishing Galmarjos Sakartvelos, and thank you once again.